It has been a whole month since I filmed the video. Do I remember what to do? Probably not, but let's see what happens. Hey book friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paula, and in today's video, we are talking about all the books that I read in the month of September. So if you follow me here on YouTube, you probably have noticed that I haven't been posting videos lately. I just did not have any creativeness in my body in the month of September, and I didn't feel like filming a video just to film a video. So we took some time, and that's fine. But we are back. And we are filming some videos today, and we're gonna talk about books because that's what we do here. So I was worried that the month of September was gonna be pretty slow with reading, but it was actually one of my best months so far this year, I think. I read a total of 13 books. I read 4 ebooks, two of which were ARCs. And then I read 9 audiobooks, which I'll talk about in a little bit because this is the first month that I have ever used audiobooks. But like I said, September was a really good month for reading. I read a ton of new authors. I read new series that I fell in love with. So let's just get into it. So the first book that I read in the month of September was The Love of My Next Life by Britt Benson. This is the first book in the Next Life duet. This was one of my ARCs. So this book follows Lennon and Macon. Lennon is Macon's sister's best friend. They've known each other since they were children, since Lennon moved to the town that they now live in. Macon has always been kind of a bully to her. He's always just been annoying her, and they are now in high school, and Lennon and Macon are both kind of struggling with different things. It's hard to go into detail about this book without giving a lot of it away. It was a very emotional book. There were a lot of feelings. This one is definitely a little bit taboo in probably the second half of the book. Yeah, it's hard to talk about this one without giving too much of the storyline away. But this is super emotional. I know Britt just opened the ARC team signups for the next book, so the second book in the duet. So I know that's coming out soon. But overall, I rated this book 4.5 stars. The next 2 books I read were the last 2 books in the Wolf Hotel series. So that is Teach Me and Surrender to Me. I'm kind of going to talk about both of these books at the same time because it's part of the same series and it follows the same couple. So a bunch of booktubers and bookstagrammers were putting together a read along for the Wolf Hotel series, which I started towards the end of August and finished the last 2 in September. And I absolutely love this series. I love Abby and Henry. I wasn't a huge fan of book 2 because there wasn't a lot of Abby and Henry together. So books 3 and 4 were definitely more enjoyable for me. I also like that in these books, we do get away from Alaska where the first 2 books took place. So it was nice to see Abby and Henry interact, 1 with other people, 2 in different places. They do a little bit of traveling. I think as the series goes on, some of the scenes get spicier and spicier. There's some stuff in book 4. I think it's book 4. Maybe it's the end of book 3. In the chateau, there's some stuff that happens that I was not expecting. I think that's book 3. I think it's book 3. And then book 4 has a hot tub scene, which if you've read the book, you know. But I really enjoyed this series. It was my first first books by K.A. Tucker. The Simple Wild, her other series set in Alaska, is also on my TBR for eventually. But I really enjoyed the Wolf Hotel series, and I gave both of those books 4.5 stars as well. Next up, I devoured a series. The series isn't finished yet. There are 2 books still to come, but I devoured the 5 books that are already out. And this is actually where I started using audiobooks, which I never thought I would do. I didn't have anything against audiobooks. I just never thought it would be a way that I like to read. I've officially changed my mind. I love audiobooks. I think they're so helpful to get through reading because I would not have read as many books this month if I didn't have audiobooks. So the series that I read next was the Bergman Brothers series by Chloe Leese. I think is how you say her last name. I've heard a couple different ways, so I'm not too sure. But the Bergman Brothers series, I understand the hype. It is such a good series. I know Caitlin over at the Love Librarian has talked about it a lot. My friend Kayla on Instagram has talked about it a lot too. She was actually the one that really convinced me to read it. She actually has a Bergman Brothers like fan account on Instagram too, which is so well curated and so well done. I absolutely love it. And I love this series. I love these characters. My absolute favorite part of this series is that at least one of the two main characters, if not both in some of them, deal with either a physical or a mental disability or disorder. As I talk about each book, I'll mention what those are, but I love seeing representation like that. So we start the series with Only When It's Us. This is Willa and Ryder's story. This is probably my favorite of the whole series. It's hard to pick, but I absolutely love Willa and Ryder. So Willa and Ryder are both students at UCLA. Willa is on the women's soccer team, and she is struggling with one of her classes due to her schedule and all the games and practices and all of that. And this one prof, she is afraid to ask for help from because I think he's known to not be accommodating. I can't remember off the top of my head. And he says, well, you should have come to me earlier in the semester, but if you want notes, ask this person. It ends up being Ryder. And so she ends up sitting next to him in class and tries to ask him for notes, and he doesn't respond back to her. He doesn't say anything to her. So she thinks that he doesn't like her, like he hates her, which she does soon come to find out that he is deaf, hard of hearing. Before coming to UCLA, Ryder actually got meningitis, I believe is what sickness he caught. And he ended up losing his hearing from it. And he was actually supposed to be on the men's soccer team at UCLA. So they end up becoming like study partners. They get put together for a project for the class. And slowly their friendship begins to build, slowly turns into a relationship. There's a chunk of the book where Willa, she ends up grieving, and Ryder is there to help her through it. I don't know what it is about Willa and Ryder. I absolutely love them. Maybe it's the fact that he's this burly mountain man lumberjack. I don't know what it is, but I absolutely loved it. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Book number 2 is Always Only You. This follows Frankie and Ren. Ren is a hockey player in the NHL, and Frankie is the like social media person for the professional hockey team. And so we've got like a forced proximity, workplace, romance. I loved this one too. Ren is a giant teddy bear, like giant teddy bear. He is not broody at all. He has liked Frankie since he first met her. Frankie has liked him for most of the time that she's been with the hockey team as well. Frankie suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, so she uses a cane, which I really like. There are a lot of Harry Potter references in this book. I believe she calls her cane the Elder Wand, which it got to a point where I was like, okay, there's too many Harry Potter references going on, but it was funny either way. This one just was like a heartfelt, like feel-good book. I absolutely love them. Ren feels like a little bit of an oddball within his family because he's one of the few that, or one of the only ones in his family that doesn't play soccer. He plays hockey. So that's definitely something that he struggles with a little bit. But I absolutely loved these two. This one got a 4.5 star for me. Frankie is also autistic, which comes into play as well because one of the other Bergman siblings is autistic as well. Ziggy, who is the youngest sister, she doesn't have a book yet. She's one of the 2 that we're still waiting on. But I loved seeing Frankie and Ziggy connect because Ziggy doesn't connect with a lot of people with her new diagnosis of autism. Book 3 is Ever After Always. So this follows Freya. So this is a Bergman sisters book because she is a sister of the brothers. And so this follows Freya and her husband Aiden, who actually was the professor from Only When It's Us, which I kind of liked that interconnection. But this one is a marriage in trouble. Freya and Aiden have really been struggling lately with their marriage. There's not a lot of romance. They are having trouble talking to each other. And so they end up going to therapy about it. And Freya and Aiden both deal with anxiety. Aiden more so. I believe. And the family decides to go on a vacation, I believe to Hawaii, for the Bergman's parents' anniversary. And so they go together. They're still not 100% with each other. Their therapist tells them they're not allowed to do anything physical. They need to work on the mental part of their relationship first. But I loved this one. I loved seeing them slowly crack open and open themselves up to talk to each other. This book is really about communication, which I really, really enjoyed. I did really enjoy this one as well. I also gave this one 4.5 stars. Next up is With You Forever, which this is probably tied for my second favorite with Always Only You. So this book follows Rooney and Axel. So Axel is one of the Bergman brothers. I believe he's the oldest one. And Rooney is Willa's best friend. So Willa from book 1. So you see Rooney a little bit in book 1 as well. I absolutely loved this book. This is a fake dating marriage of convenience. Rooney has been struggling at school. I believe she's in law school, and she struggles with IBS. And so she's been really struggling with school. She hasn't been able to stay focused. So she takes a leave, and Willa has suggested that she goes to the Bergman's A-frame, so the cabin that they have out in the Oregon mountains. The family kind of splits the year, so each person gets a chunk of time up there. And over the 3 books, you do see little glimpses of Rooney and Axel kind of pining for each other a little bit, but neither of them admitting to it. So she goes up there and realizes that Axel is up there. It's his time of the year to be up there, but he is struggling because he does a lot of the fixing up of the A-frame, and there are a lot of problems. And he realizes he needs money to be able to fix it up. And Axel is a painter, but he hasn't been able to paint or sell anything for quite a while. He just hasn't had the inspiration, anything like that. But he finds out that, I want to say it's his grandfather. I really can't remember for some reason. But he is part of someone's will and he gets money from it. But the stipulation is that he has to be married. And so when Rooney shows up there, eventually he kind of decides, okay, this is probably the only way this is going to work. So they end up getting fake married. And we all know fake dating, marriage of convenience, forced proximity, real feelings happen. I loved Rooney and Axel. I love seeing a sensitive and vulnerable male character because it's not often that happens, and that is Axel. He's very closed off from the rest of the world, and Rooney helps open him up a little bit. And I love them. They have a dog, they have a cat, they live out in the mountains, they have their little spot in the mountains that they go to all the time for sunsets, and it makes my heart very, very happy. So this one also got 4.5 stars. And then the 5th book in the series is Everything for You, which follows Oliver, who is the Bergman in the story, and Gavin. So this is a male-male romance, which I loved. So Gavin and Oliver are teammates. They both play soccer for, I believe it's the LA Galaxy. And this is very much grumpy sunshine. My teammate hates me. I don't understand why. There's also a little bit of an age gap, I believe, because Oliver grew up like being a huge fan of Gavin when he was over in Europe. This one wasn't my favorite. This is probably my least favorite out of the 5, but it still is great. I can't remember off the top of my head what I believe Gavin has anxiety. I can't remember, to be brutally honest with you. There wasn't a lot in this book that really grabbed my attention, but I still really enjoyed it. There's caretaking in this book, which is something that I absolutely love. There's a 1-bed trope. Again, we love a 1-bed trope. I did really enjoy this one. Like I said, probably my least favorite though, but I did give this one a 4-star rating. Next up was another arc, and I feel like I talk about this author in every video I've ever done, which is totally fine. Shows that she's one of my favorite authors. And this is What Hurts Us by Maggie Gates. This is book 1 in the Falls Creek series, which is a new series that she is writing. I'm very excited about this series because at least one of, if not both, main characters are a first responder in some sort of way. So book 1 is Layla and Callum. Layla is a flight nurse and Callum is the small town cop. So Layla you see a little bit in the Poker Club series. She dated one of the characters for a little bit. So in this book, she has been traveling around the world as a travel nurse, and she lands in Falls Creek and becomes a flight nurse. And her very first call on her very first day is to a crash out in the country, just outside of Falls Creek. And the victim is Callum. So he is in a car accident. He ends up injuring his leg in the car crash. And that's how they meet. She is there to transport him to the hospital. And I don't know if I would technically say Callum is like grumpy. He's just quiet and broody, which I love. And he has been single for so long. He has grown up in this town since he was a teenager. He moved to Falls Creek. He was a teenager to live with his grandma. The town does this thing every year where it's like a date auction. So all of I believe the first responders, so the cops, the firefighters, all of that, get put up for bid. And normally it's okay. He gets like the older ladies who just like want companionship. But the year prior, this girl named Brandy Jean buys him and thinks that it's a legit date and keeps trying to date him. And he's like, I have to get out of this date auction again this year. And the only way he can think of is to be engaged or be married, because that's the one rule that allows the men not to be in the auction, is if they are married. And so he decides, after meeting Layla again at another event, that Layla's the one that he's going to ask to be his fake fiance. And it ends up being that Layla's apartment that she was staying in, her neighbors were caught in a drug bust. And so they had to like rip out a bunch of the apartment. They have to redo it. So she needs somewhere to stay. So she ends up staying at Callum's house. And so we've got, again, forced proximity, fake dating, marriage of convenience. The feelings all come up again. I absolutely loved this one. Layla and Callum were a perfect couple. I don't think there's anything that Maggie could write that I wouldn't enjoy reading. There is a sexy scene on a motorcycle, is all I'm gonna say. They have a like engagement photo shoot done, and some of the things Callum says to her, and I was like, okay, Callum, we like this. There's a sensory deprivation scene. Overall, it was phenomenal. I'm so excited for the next few books. I don't know 100% who book 2 is about, but I know book 3 is Austin Hale's book, who is a firefighter. Again, you meet him in the Poker Club series. And I'm really excited for that one as well. But I gave What Hurts Us 4.5 stars. The next 3 books were again done on audio, and I read the first 3 books in the Sutter Lake series by Catherine Cowles. So it's Beautifully Broken Pieces, Beautifully Broken Life, and Beautifully Broken Spirit. I have heard a lot of people talk about Catherine Cowles' books, especially Jess over at Peace Love Books and Tori from Novel Life. And I had the audiobooks available on Scribd, so I figured, why not? I'll read them, I'll listen to them. I absolutely love this series. I love the small town. I love the suspense behind it. I'm excited to listen to the last 2, I believe, this month. So Beautifully Broken Pieces follows Taylor and Walker. Taylor is new to Sutter Lake. She's just lost her mom, and I believe her mom grew up there, used to spend time there. I can't remember off the top of my head. But she goes back to Sutter Lake and decides to live there. I think Walker's a cop in Sutter Lake as well. And his family owns a ranch, just outside of, Sutter Lake. And the mystery is that there are constantly these women being found dead in the woods, and Walker is trying to figure this out with his team. They can't figure it out. Taylor has been really struggling with her mom dying and with relationships. She doesn't think she's really worthy of a relationship. I loved Taylor and Walker together. The suspense in this book was insane. Not as high as some of the other ones, but it was still really, really good. This one got 4.5 stars. Book 2 is Beautifully Broken Life. I absolutely love this one. This is Tessa and Liam. Tessa had run away to Sutter Lake from an abusive ex-fiance, I believe. I don't think they were married. Changed her identity, all of that stuff, and moves to Sutter Lake. So she's still a little bit jumpy. She's worried that he's going to find her across the country. And then Liam is a musician who has been struggling and decides to, towards the end of the first book in the Sutter Lake series, he decides to kind of move to Sutter Lake. He is one of Taylor's best friends, and he is dealing with some drama with a fan that he's had, and so he's trying to disappear into a middle of nowhere town. I absolutely love this. The fact that Liam takes his time to get to know Tessa. He doesn't jump right in because he can tell that she gets spooked really easily, especially by men. But I loved their story. I loved the romance between the two of them. This one definitely had a little bit more suspense. There is kidnapping in this one, but I really, really enjoyed this one. And this one also got a 4.5 stars. And then book 3 is Beautifully Broken Spirit. This follows Jensen and Tuck. Jensen is Walker's sister, and she is a single mom. Tuck is, I believe, Walker's best friend. So we've got brother's best friend here. They've grown up together. So a little bit of a childhood friends to lovers. You find out that Jensen has raised her son pretty much his entire life, but his biological father comes back into the picture. And Jensen is not having anything to do with him because he didn't want anything to do with her when she got pregnant in college. And Tuck is extremely protective over her. And one of the things that really helps Jensen is the horses. So there are wild horses out near Sutter Lake that she loves to go and sit and just watch, sometimes interact with. She has her own sort of like horse sanctuary for injured or abandoned horses. She starts to realize that there's someone killing the wild horses, and she's not having anything to do with it. And so she tries to stop it, and in the process, she has someone almost killing her, or attempting to kill her too. So all of these books kind of have the like murder mystery, either kidnapping or like attempting to murder. I loved this one. I loved seeing Tuck meld right into the family with Jensen and her son. I loved it. These series just kind of pull me right in. They hook me real quick, and I absolutely love them. This one I gave a 4.5 star rating as well. And then the last book that I read this month was Longshot by Kennedy Ryan. This follows August and Iris. And I am very happy that people who had read this book prior had mentioned trigger warnings. I'm also going to mention, before you read this book, please read the trigger warnings. There is a lot of stuff that happens on page. It's very graphic, sexual assault, physical abuse, something a little even worse. So please check trigger warnings for this book. It's a beautiful story. It's a story that needs to be told, but it is quite graphic and can be quite upsetting to people. So please know that going into it. But August and Iris meet at a bar the night before August's big, I believe it's university basketball championship game. He finds out the next day, after he had been flirting with her and all of that stuff, that she is dating basically his enemy. And so he's like, okay, it's fine, whatever. Like, she's not mine. I can't have her. None of that stuff. Iris ends up pregnant with her boyfriend's baby. August doesn't know. This book actually travels across quite a few years, which I like. Sometimes romances happen in the span of 2 months, and I'm like, that's a little too quick. I like that this one spans quite a few years. I want to say like 5 years maybe. So the majority of the story is in the future after she's had the baby. Her boyfriend is, like I said, very abusive. He is taking advantage of her. She tries to get away. He finds her, pulls her back. Eventually she does get away, disappears for a while. And it's basically Iris and August meeting again in the future and trying to find their way together as a couple so she can escape her abusive ex. I absolutely love this book. Like I said, there are a couple scenes in this book that were really hard to read. I actually listened to this on audio, and I think that made it even harder because I was hearing the scenes happen with the actors and the acting in it, and so it made it really, really tough to listen to. But I absolutely loved this book. I can't wait to read the next 2 in the series. So this is book 1 in the Hoops series by Kennedy Ryan. So I'm very excited to read those. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of September. Like I said, this was a great month for me. I started falling in love with audiobooks. I'm so excited to continue using audiobooks to be able to read more every month. Let me know down below what your favorite book was in the month of September. I would love to know. Or did you find a new author that you loved? Let me know down below. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so that you don't miss any future content from me. And I will see you guys in my next video.